And what gives me joy is that the panelists we have today can really do justice to this topic. I'm so happy I was able to get Dr. Daria because she's been in the trenches of Niger Delta. You know where they're shooting guns every day. So she knows about these things. And of course, DSP is coming from the southeastern part of this country where we know what happened there also. Then the third panelist is a member of or the leader of the medical team in Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners, and she comes from a medical background. So both her parents are medical practitioners, so she's been through all these kind of issues before. So welcome again to the webinar. I will quickly give you a brief overview of the profiles of these, our distinguished panelists, and then I'll hand it over to my managing partner, to moderate the panel. Thank you. So let's make welcome Dr. Paulina Daria. Dr. Paulina Daria's medical career began in a public hospital setting with her bachelor's degree at the University of Ife, which is now known as Obafemi Awolowo University. That's what they call Oba Awolowo University. In 1990, she went on to specialize in obstetrics and gynecology and became a fellow of the West African College of Surgeons in 1999. She subsequently worked with a multinational company as a specialist obstetrician gynecologist and an emergency care provider. During this period, she was very active in the fight against HIV, which was very prevalent in Niger Delta at that point because she was in worry. She then saw the need for and acquired a Master's of Public Health from the University of Liverpool in 2012. And I can attest to the fact that she's a strong woman because that was a hard sell. With a full-time job, young children, she was still in school and she made it. Congratulations, Doc. She's presently in private practice and is the managing director and consultant obstetrician gynecologist at Mind Aid Hospital in Port Harcourt, River State. This doctor, she loves the Niger Delta. She's always been there, from Warri to Port Harcourt. She's a member of the Society of Gynecology and Obstetrics of Nigeria, a member of the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, member of the Center for Women and Adolescents Development, and River State Family Planning Advocacy Working Group. Dr. Paulina Daria is a mother, grandmother, and wife, and she remains an advocate for women's well-being, especially maternal health, violence against women. Please, let's make welcome Dr. Paulina Daria. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have DSP Ihianetu Bruno Chukwudera, the public relations officer or a public relations officer with the Nigerian Police Force. So he's a deputy superintendent of police, and DSP Bruno is the police public relations officer at the Nigerian Police Zone 9 headquarters in Umuahia. DSP Bruno enlisted in the Nigerian Police Force on the 31st of December, 2016 as a cadet assistant superintendent of police, ASP. He trained at the Noble Citadel of Learning, which is the police staff college in Jos Plateau State, and holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree, BA Honors, in English and literary studies from the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. He attended several courses, amongst which are citizenship and leadership training at Sherry Hills in Jos, lovely place, community policing training, public communication and crisis management course, and the police mobile force training, among several others. He has served the Nigerian Police Force in various capacities, notably as Police Public Relations Officer, Imo State Police Command, and detective at State Criminal Investigation Department, Owerri, prior to his appointment as the Police Public Relations Officer of Zone 9 headquarters at Umuahia. Let's make welcome DSP Ihianetu Bruno Chukwudera. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone.
And next, we have our own Queen Charles Upo. Queen is an experienced litigator who currently leads the Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners medical law team, law practice area. She holds a Bachelor's of Law degree from University of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State, and she got her Bachelor's at Law training at Nigerian Law School in Lagos. She holds a certificate in commercial mediation from the Mediation Academy of London, as well as a certificate in bioethics, which covers the law, medicine, and the ethics of reproductive technologies and genetics. As the linchpin of the medical law practice team in Compos Mentis, she has successfully trained health professionals on their obligations towards their patients and is currently spearheading the expansion of the medical law practice at Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners. In her final year at University of Uyo, Queen represented Nigeria at the annual International Humanitarian Law Moot Competition in Arusha, Tanzania. She also emerged third place winner at the 2021 edition of the Nigerian Bar Association Section on Legal Practice Young Lawyers Debate Competition in Nigeria. We're very proud of Queen. And she's a member of the firm's Daffy Akpedeye Essay Competition Implementation Team. This is an annual essay competition in honor of our founder, the founder of Compos Mentis, and we'll be hearing a bit more about where we are at with the 2023 edition of that competition towards the end of the webinar. Queen has profound expertise in legal research, legal reasoning, and is very adept at applying legal principles to practical situations. Good to have you, Queen. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Right. And our guy at the top, we'll be moderating today. So Emokinyewu Daffy Akpedeye is the managing partner of Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners. She's a graduate of economics and management from the University of Bristol in the UK and an Oxford University Law graduate. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators of the United Kingdom, and she is the youngest person to have obtained or attained the fellowship grade in Nigeria. She's also a holder of the Diploma of International Commercial Arbitration, which is the highest academic qualification at the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and she's an experienced litigator. Emokinyewu is a qualified solicitor in England and Wales, and she holds an LLM, a Master's in Law, with an Entertainment Law certificate from the University of Southern California in the USA. She's a member of the Chartered Institute of Trademark Attorneys in the UK. She's a member of the Institute of Directors and is on the panel of neutrals of the Nigerian Chambers of Commerce Dispute Resolution Center of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and the Federal High Court Alternative Dispute Resolution Center. She's the Chief Executive Officer of our NGO, which is called the Compos Mentis Foundation, and she's a board member of the Restorative Justice for Africa Initiative, which is a leading NGO on restorative justice. She's also a non-executive director of RR Solutions Technology Limited. That is a technology service provider that assists in humanitarian efforts to deliver e-vouchers, cash, and other services in remote locations. In 2020, she was featured in the People's Accolade Law magazine as one of Africa's top millennials. Emokinyewu's peers describe her as a passionate, hardworking lawyer focused on meeting the legal needs of the clients in a commercially savvy fashion. Her mantra is, only the best is good enough, and she consistently delivers high quality, sterling professional services. Thank you so much, Emokinyewu. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
And before I hand over, my name is Engineer Noli Akpedeye. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners. I will now hand over to Mayoga, the Managing Partner, to moderate the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Akpedeye, our Chief Operating Officer, and also an experienced engineer for over 30 years. Let's also welcome her to this panel. I just want to welcome our distinguished panelists and our participants once again. This is the first of our 2023 webinar. We started this, I think, almost 3 years ago, and we're very happy that we're able to commence with this very, very important topic. I think this is a topic, as Engineer Akpedeye said, which cuts across many sections of the country, especially given the security challenges we face in today's Nigeria. Just to recap, our topic today is the treatment of gunshot wounds and other emergencies in Nigerian hospitals, the Confrontations and Hard Knocks. And that's what we'll be discussing today. And I'm so happy to have our panel here with us today. So I want to start, this is obviously a medical issue. So I want to start first with our distinguished doctor, Dr. Daria, who has a lot of experience, as our CEO said, in this issue, given that she has worked primarily in Warri and in Port Harcourt in the Niger Delta. So my first question is, from your experience, how has the medical profession fared in the treatment of gun wounds and other emergencies in Nigeria? And I'll ask two questions together so you can just give us the answer. So one, how have they fared? And are there any bottlenecks you found in the treatment and the admission of such gunshot victims?
Good. You notice that the electrical company had taken light, so I've just been struggling with them getting it back. That's number one of the challenges we have, as you can evidently see. But thanks for inviting me to this forum. The medical profession, first of all, we take an oath to save life. And every emergency situation is one in which there is threat to life and to limb. There is actually no way you can tell whether somebody who is presenting clinically is an emergency case except you evaluate. So we start on the premise of every case is an emergency until proven otherwise. Anything that deviates from this will put at risk life and limb. So when an individual comes in, first of all, we have to check and be sure. You do the vital signs, you do the level of consciousness, and you see, okay, where is this injury taking place? So let's first of all establish what an emergency is and how do we determine that this case is an emergency. Now, how have we fared? We are working as medical practitioners, depending on where you are working, faced with various challenges. And we have to strive to achieve excellence in spite of whatever challenges we are faced with. Working in the public sector, for example, where I've worked, the challenges you face are totally different. Working in a multinational company, the challenges you face there are totally different. And working in a private hospital where I am now, I started off work in a public hospital. And what we find there is financial costs and restraints. When emergencies come, we have to ask individuals to provide everything down to needles and syringes. And then we moved to a multinational company where our biggest challenge was not cost. We had everything provided, but then we had to deal with managing public relations. Now I'm in a private hospital, and I think back on the days when I used to point fingers and tell people that, oh, life has to come first. Yes, life still has to come first. We have certain situations when you provide for the individual that has come in as an emergency, and one of few things happen. And I think I stand boldly to say that I know a lot of allegations have been made that hospitals turn out gunshot injury victims. But I can tell you that that would happen in a minority of cases if it ever happens, because our first oath is to save life. When an individual comes in and we do what we need to do, we start up emergency care. We are then faced with a situation of insecurity, or when you call for support systems. I'm happy there's a police PR officer here, because I found myself in that situation. I have called at times that, oh, I need backup support, because where I know we are even going is a risky situation. And I can tell you more details on that. And I have just, sometimes it's unfortunate that I'm sure not all police officers would do that, but if you have encountered will tell you that, no, they cannot come. Who is going to provide this? Who is going to provide that? They need some financial support, which I understand because they're also working under a lot of restrictions. And then when you are done getting a patient through the emergency phase, they turn around and become, I'm even trying to find the correct words to describe it, but then all of a sudden you become the enemy. And we are now faced with a situation when we are also working under a lot of financial restrictions. Then you provide emergency care for an individual, and the individual turns around and tells you, okay, do your worst, I'm leaving the hospital, or whatever circumstance it is. And you are left with, okay, what next do I do? How do I cover up my costs as well? It's not just that. I will tell you, during this NSAS crisis we had, in my hospital, they brought in somebody who had been hacked and left for dead. Of course, we had to start saving life. And by the time that gentleman was leaving, we had spent close to ₦1 million on him. And he did not have a penny to pay us. So who bears the brunt? There is no support system in place. Government has no support system for us. Presently, there are reviews going on, which is along the right trend, I must say. The previously existing health insurance agency, the National Health Insurance Scheme that had been running is currently being reviewed. And at least that would help provide, hopefully, some degree of funding for health in Nigeria. Up till recently, majority of health funding has been out of pocket. So it's a pay-as-you-go event. A person comes in and they pay for whatever services they are being rendered. When you have a situation where people don't have food to eat, you know nothing is kept in reserve for health. When the health insurance scheme came on board, barely 3% of Nigerians fell under this scheme. It was mainly for workers. People could pay for their health. But right now, it is being reviewed, and hopefully, people who are not workers and the common man in the country may then have access to health funding. So these are the few challenges. I tell you mostly, I've had hospitals being burnt because they try to help an emergency situation and things go wrong. And they burn the hospitals, and the doctors and the nurses have to run for their lives. So we have security issues and we have funding issues. And I think to a large extent, we have also some little bit of ignorance. Perhaps not everybody knows what the legal standing is. Not every doctor, not every medical person knows what the current legal standing is. But the majority of issues we have are with security and funding.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daria. I think you've given us a lot to think about in this particular area. You spoke a lot about the issue on funding, and I think that's always a primary issue when we're talking about the medical field, because somebody has to pay. And I know you spoke a bit about the health insurance scheme, which you're hoping will be reviewed and there will be some sort of access to pay for some of this cost. But I just want to know that, are you saying that currently there is no scheme where the hospital can get some sort of recovery from either the state government or the federal government if you have some unknown person coming with a gunshot wound and then he flees away? There is no recovery at all for your hospital?
There is none that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And that's why I leave a space for ignorance of practitioners. But as of present, I mean, what I have been faced with, and I've been faced with many, that nobody, there is no social support system, there is no web to buffer us. We can't even do it as a tax remitting situation. We can't like, what do they call it again?
You can't deduct it from your...
Yes, you can. It's not tax deductible. Yes, you can't tell, oh no, nobody listens to you.
Okay, that's a very interesting summary by the doctor. And I'd be very intrigued to hear what DSP and Queen will have to say on some of the issues you have read on security and on funding specifically. So I want to go straight on to DSP Bruno, and I would like to ask you a few questions. The narrative we hear, I mean, from social media, from different people, is that the police always insist that medical practitioners should get some sort of police reports before they treat victims of gunshot wounds. I want to know what inspires that idea. falsely or rightly, what inspires that idea, either on the part of the police force or on individuals who think that this is what currently happens in our country?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Compos Mentis and everyone here. And good morning to everyone. While the doctor was talking, she raised some issues that concerns the police. But I think I'll go straight to your questions. I believe in medias res, I'll still react to some of the issues she raised. You know, these compulsory treatment and care for victims of gunshots acts, the law, it became an act in 2017. And prior to that, I can tell you that yes, they always ask for police reports before gunshot victims get treated in hospitals. There are reasons to that. Nigeria have what they call firearm acts. And it's not every day that someone gets shot in the country or in the world. Okay, let's say Nigeria, using Nigeria as a case study here. The firearm acts, we have so many prohibited firearms, which is not like that in other countries, especially advanced countries like the US and the likes. In Nigeria, we just have just the double barrel. That's the only unprohibited firearm. And before such will be given to you, you have to go through a series of processes. You understand? Series of trainings before you acquire this certain firearm. So every other firearm is either used by the military, the police, or all those military or paramilitary agencies. And for you to have a gunshot injury, it raises eyebrows. It, begs for questions. Okay, you were shot. How were you shot? Are you not a criminal? Are you not a suspect? I think that is what necessitated getting the police report before you're treated. Now, prior to 2017, that was the tradition. But after 2017, when this compulsory treatment and care for victims of gunshots act was enacted into law, the police ceased from such acts. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Now, if you go to hospitals, you don't need the police whatever to get treated. We are the Nigerian police force. We enact all, even extant laws of the land. We enforce it, I mean to say. So we cannot possibly be enforcing something that the law doesn't uphold. So I can tell you that this tradition, which borders on the question you've thrown to me, was in existence before 2017. And after 2017, if anyone has come to you to tell you that the police held a series of campaigns, the public relations department held a series of campaigns when this act was enacted, informing every Tom, Dick, and Harry that, see, this is the new tradition, this is the new culture. You don't need the police report to get treated. Once the person is taken to a hospital, 2 hours after treatment has commenced, you inform the police. Even the person that have brought the injured person must give information which we will corroborate in our investigation to make sure that whatever that has made this person gain a gunshot injury, if it is by mistake, if the person is not a criminal, you understand? What's the involvement? What led to this? You understand? Investigation has to prove that actually there is no attachment, criminal attachment to this injured person. Because so many people, so many armed robbers, they may involve in a gun duel with the police in the act of armed robbery, and some of them could escape with gunshot injuries. You don't go to the hospital to get treated and to come back and cause menace in a society where we are trying to build, where we are trying to make peaceful for you and I. So please, I think let me just conclude and not waste anybody's time. This culture was in existence prior to 2017. After 2017, when the law was enacted, the police ceased. We are the Nigerian police force and we are the enforcers of the law. We are the first responders in any criminal incident. And we obey the law because this law powers us to work.
Thank you so much, DSP. So what I'm hearing from you is that there is a misconception So there is a little bit of misconception, maybe in the public, that police still require police reports, and maybe sometimes from certain medical practitioners who may not be as aware as yourself, as Dr. Daria, that this is no longer the position in Nigeria, that you don't actually have to require a police report before you commence treatment. Thank you for that. The other question I wanted to ask you, I want you to react specifically to Dr. Daria's comments on security, because security is a big issue for medical practitioners. You mentioned sometimes people come in, maybe it was a court battle or armed robbery, and these people come in and maybe they come in with their goons or whatever, and the medical practitioners themselves, they feel unsafe. They want to treat, but they feel unsafe. How is the police force liaising and assisting medical practitioners to do their work efficiently?
I understand the position of such medical practitioners on the aspect of safety. But just as I said earlier, treat this person, someone must bring that person to the hospital. In rare occasions, can an injured person bring himself or herself to the hospital? You understand? Even when the person comes, there should be some information you could extract. You understand? Those informations, no matter how ephemeral, no matter how porous, how unweighty, those information you could extract from the person or the person that has brought the person. Just put a call across. There's always a police station, police division nearby. You understand? You could send one of your workers to see, go and call the police. The law states 2 hours after treatment must have commenced. You understand? All you need is communicate us. There are control room numbers all over the internet. Thank God for Google. If you just Google control room, police control room phone numbers, they're everywhere. In Imo, in Abia, in Oma, everywhere they have control room numbers. Hospitals should do themselves. They should get acquainted with what's happening. I believe they do. You understand? Get the control room numbers. Whenever you have such issues, you just ring the control room. I'm Dr. Susan, calling from Susan Hospital. We have a gunshot victim here. Please, your attention is needed. The police will dispatch, because anything that has to do with firearm is we take it very serious, especially in this dispensation of insecurity in Nigeria. You understand? All they need is, we are always a call away. If they can't reach us on phone, they can send someone, maybe a worker. They just drive to the nearest police station, inform them of this, and they will come. Once they come, the police will take over from there. You understand? We ask pertinent questions, look at the injury, look at the kind of bullets that will be, removed from the person's body. We study, take it to the forensic department. We study, know the kind of ammunition that expanded such a bullet and all that. You understand? The pellets, we study everything. So we are just a call away. All they need is to get the phone numbers, the control room numbers of the particular state, or it's always the state something. You now call the state control room. They will not dispatch they call the nearest police division around you or a police post around you. Then those will dispatch men. That's how it works. It's a network of synergy.
Thank you so much, DSP. I think not only Dr. Daria, but the rest of us are actually highly enlightened by this information. Many of us are not aware of these control rooms, which you can reach out to and they can dispatch the necessary support that the hospitals need. So thank you very much for that. I see a comment by Dr. Daria in the comment section. I'm going to circle back to her on that particular comment. But right now, I want to get Queen involved in this conversation. From a legal aspect, the DSP has mentioned the 2017 Act, he's mentioned the Firearms Act. So he's already setting the ball rolling for the legal framework for treatment of gunshot wounds. Now I want to ask, can you briefly give us maybe the laws and the policies, and how well are they being implemented from your point of view as a medical law legal practitioner in this area?
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to other speakers who have made their contributions so far. Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Queen.
All right, thank you. So yes, the police officer has already commenced a discussion on our legal framework as regards the treatment of emergency cases in Nigeria. So we have a handful of them. I'm just going to pick out the principal legislations and then talk briefly on them. So first and foremost, we have the National Health Act of 2014. And now, when it comes to the regulation of healthcare in Nigeria, this is primary legislation, the National Health Act of 2014. Now, when it comes to the treatment of emergencies in Nigeria, the relevant section here is Section 20 of that Act. Section 20 of that Act stipulates that on no account, for no reason should a hospital refuse offering immediate emergency treatment to victims of either gunshot injury or whatever it is. So far that case is an emergency case, then the hospital is to give whatever treatment that is relevant at that moment. And then that section goes on to criminalize any behavior of the hospital or healthcare provider, which is inconsistent with the provision of that act. So the hospital, you're asked to take on emergency cases and treat them without asking for initial payment of deposit, which is usually the case. You go to the hospital and they're like, oh, we can't do anything to you until, which sometimes you're like, because most of those hospitals, especially the private ones, are a growing concern. And so they really are also, aside upholding their primary duty to protect or save lives, they're also worried about how they will recoup their expenses and all of that. So most times they'll ask, we will not begin treatment until we have a deposit and all of that. And so the law is saying, no, you can't ask for that in emergency situation. What you should do is to go on and treat and stabilize the patient. Failure to do that, then you either will be fined the sum of 100,000 naira, or you could be sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, or even self-dual punishment, which is you're fined and then you're also made to serve a prison term of six months. Then we'll also have the police officer talked about the compulsory treatment and care of victims of gunshots Act 2017. Now that legislation is very specific. It speaks primarily to the people who have been shot or who have victims of gunshots in Nigeria. Section 1 of that law, which the police has actually done quite a good job in trying to put forward the law, states that every hospital, whether private or public, should admit and treat victims of gunshots without the need for a police clearance. So fine, if a police clearance is presented, no problem. But if it is not presented, then go ahead and treat the patient. And then when you're able to stabilize the patient and within 2 hours of commencing treatment, you can actually reach out to the police officer, like he has said, to the nearby police station, and then inform them of the situation at hand. But there's a clause, because I think the police officer said we could come over and do conduct some investigation and all of that. I think the law actually says that when you have such a case, the police officer, yes, you could do your investigation and all of that, but you're not necessarily to come to the hospital at that time and start harassing the patient. You're to wait till when the hospital has certified that that patient is fit to be discharged. That is when you can take in or carry out any in-depth investigation. You cannot say, oh, the hospital has invited me, and so every day you go back. That person really needs to be stabilized before that person can give you any concrete information. So yes, the law understands that the police will have to come in and do some investigation, but the law also understands that this person needs to be stabilized to be able to give you any form of concrete information. Then there's also, the law also makes provision for the protection of the Good Samaritans. So somebody has seen a victim of gunshot and as volunteer to take that person to the hospital, and then the police is called in for some investigation and all of that, and the person is now being subjected to some form of questioning. Now, the law says that such a person should not be subjected to unnecessary interrogation and questioning. I don't think, to my mind, that the law is saying that person should not be questioned. So obviously you'll be asked questions as to where did you pick up this person? Where did you meet this person? Can you give us the situation surrounding the whole situation? Yes, I expect that people will understand that you'll be asked those questions. Those are valid questions. But the way and manner in which you're being asked that questions is what I feel the law is looking at. So the police is not to harass the Good Samaritan who had volunteered graciously to take victim to the hospital. Then the law also requires that everyone the hospital, our security operatives, the police, anybody who comes in contact with a gunshot victim should do whatever it takes to take that person to the hospital. So you're not really saying, oh, it's not my business, I don't want to be involved, so that the police will not say I'm an accomplice and all of that. Even beyond the law asking us to do that, I think it's a moral responsibility on our part that if you see somebody in such a distressing situation, you should elect to help. But I think the fear usually is that people will think, oh, I'll be harassed by the police, they'll ask me questions and all of that. So that is why that I had to bring up that provision of the law that says that, yes, you can ask questions as a police officer, as a security agent, but ensure that you're not subjecting this person to unnecessary questioning and interrogation. Then the law states that if the hospital or a police officer who stood by and actually allowed and could offer, refuse to offer any assistance to a gunshot victim, is actually guilty of an offense. And so if you're tried and found guilty, you will be made to pay the sum of 500,000 naira, or you'll be sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. So that's on the whole a summary of what the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Gunshot Victims Act 2017 is about. Then I'm not just going to talk a little about the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. So the Constitution is our ground norm. So every other law that we have in Nigeria is derived from it. And so I just want to say that all of the, if somebody is in a critical condition, in an emergency condition that requires help, and you actually, for whatever reason, refuse to be to carry out the legal duty that has been given to you, then you're indirectly taking life from that person. So you have a duty, like if the victim is brought to your hospital, you should offer whatever treatment you can. If you're a police officer, you happen to be in a situation whereby you could render some assistance, you should be able to do that. Failure to do that, you're actually depriving that person of the right to life as enshrined in section 33 sub 1 of the Constitution. And it's very, very particular for the hospitals, because the issue of life and death is most likely in the hands of the doctors, though we know it's in the hands of God. But in this situation, it's what you've done here that will qualify whether or not the person will transcend to the other part of wherever it is. But the point is, if you're shifting from if you're not taking up your responsibilities, your legal duties, then you're actually depriving the other person of the right to life. Then we also have the National Health Insurance Authority Act of 2019. And so I think Dr. Daria was trying to talk about the issue of funding and all of that. So this act is an improvement on the earlier one that we had, and its relevance is basically as regards the issue of funding. So hospitals that have actually gotten these patients, treated them, how do they recoup their expenses and all of that? So the law, that the Health Insurance Authority Act makes provision for the Vulnerable People Fund. So the federal government is supposed to establish a particular fund, the Vulnerable Fund, where resources are pulled from different areas, and then those resources are then distributed. There's supposed to be a committee established for that purpose. So the committee now works on the disbursement of those funds to the relevant state government and the local government areas. Now, the issue of having the law, and then it's one issue to have the law, and then another thing for it to be implemented. Even before the coming of the National Health Insurance Authority Act of 2019, there's already a provision in the National Health Act of 2014, something on the basic healthcare provision fund, which speaks to the fact that 5% of the funds from the federal government should be devoted to the treatment of emergency cases in Nigeria. So if that law is actually implemented to the letter, then we wouldn't have issues of hospitals saying, oh, we don't want to take on these cases because we don't know how we are going to recoup our expenses, or we cannot take these people because after we've treated them, we're unable to settle our bills. And private hospitals, for what we know, aside carrying on their duty to save life, are also the profit. So it's not a bad thing anyway. But the fact is, we have those laws, but the thing is, how have they really been implemented? And then Dr. Darius said something about a little bit of ignorance, if I got her correctly, on why people are not aware of the laws and all of that. I don't think it's a little. I actually think that a greater number of persons, both the medical practitioners and even the citizens for whom the laws are made, are not aware of what is actually happening. They are not aware of the laws that are being made for their benefits. And the truth is, if these persons are not aware, then the laws are actually of no use. Because it's one thing to have laws, but it's another thing to get to enforce them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Queen. Again, you've given us a lot to think about, and I like that you spoke to some of the questions that Dr. Daria had raised, and also spoke to some of the issues that the DSP had raised. Now, I saw in the comment section, Dr. Daria said that, remember that not all hospitals, especially private hospitals, have the capacity to deal with gunshot injuries. So I want to again direct this question to Dr. Daria. Queen has spoken about the obligations on hospitals that if you don't treat emergencies, then you could be liable to a fine, or even the doctor themselves could be liable to imprisonment or both. Now, you mentioned that sometimes that hospital may not even have the capacity to deal with the gunshot victim. In those scenarios, from your experience as a medical practitioner, what should happen so that we still preserve life, but the person in question is actually given the right medical care? What should happen in those scenarios?
When you have such individuals presenting in any hospital, the basic thing is to stabilize. Key things are like putting up an IV line, stopping the bleeding if it's in a place where it can be easily stopped. But you can have a situation where, for example, a patient is shot in the head or is shot in the chest, where you need immediate theater, access to theater, and a cardiothoracic surgeon or a neurosurgeon. There are very few hospitals in Nigeria that can really boast, even in the teaching hospitals, of having these people immediately at hand. So if you are in a private hospital under such circumstance, the best you can do is start stabilization process, put up an IV line, replace the fluids you can replace. If you have blood, you may be able to start a blood donation or blood transfusion, and tamponade the bleeding sites and try for the patient to be moved to a teaching hospital or any other hospital that might have such capacity. And I tell you, it's actually a big challenge. If you take blood, for example, we don't have centralized blood banks with all these hospitals having access to them. So if you have a patient who needs blood, and one patient might need up to 10 or 15 units of blood, it really becomes a nightmare. So we actually, most of us have the willingness to help and save lives. Most people, I can tell you, most hospitals, most doctors, the basic thing would have been done. Where we tend to have problems with is what next? Nobody can have a patient coming into their hospital and the person is pouring blood and you are saying, come and drop a deposit first. It's not possible. It is, I can tell you, it is not, that doctor will even be sanctioned by our peers. You'll be sanctioned by our peers. So the truth or the basic thing is that we need support systems in place. And we need to start looking into this. We need to have centralized blood banks. We need to have ambulance services. That's another place that some states are doing good, doing fairly well in. These are parts of the things that our umbrella bodies are trying to drive. You know, having emergency ambulance services. Because if I have a case now and I need to move to UPTH, that's about 45 minutes, 1 hour's drive from my hospital. How am I going to move without an ambulance service? So these are the things, support systems we need in place. And we need to drive those. Not just doctors alone, but lawyers as well.
Thank you for passing the buck back to us. But thank you so much, Dr. Daria, because you've given us an insight into what should happen. Because sometimes we find that as lay members of the public who don't have any medical expertise, you come into a situation like that and you're shouting, doctor, do something, do something. And actually you've done the best you can within maybe the remit of your expertise or what that hospital can do. So we need this information to really go out to the public so they know, okay, this hospital can't handle it. They can only stabilize and then we need to transfer this person. And so that hospital doesn't have any liability in that particular scenario. Now, I also want to come again to the DSP. Queen mentioned something about the Good Samaritans Act. I'm always very intrigued about such acts because I find, again, if you trail social media, Twitter, Instagram, or even talk to your peers, you will find that most people do not want to help in emergency situations, especially gunshot situations, because they fear that the police will come in and it will lead to harassment. You know, they will feel that, oh, you are part of a gang, or maybe you're the one who shot him, whatever the scenario is. How far has the police gone in educating its members on how to properly treat people who come in, who bring in gunshot victims, so that the rest of the public feel comfortable and they're safe in helping their fellow citizens?
The truth is that the populace have this phobia for the police, especially in this part of the world. That is why we are here. That's why we're always doing the best we could in the PR work, just to make ourselves very much accessible to the members of the public. If someone, maybe along the road or somewhere, comes in contact with someone, a gunshot victim, my first word to that Good Samaritan is help. Life always comes first. As for having fears that the police will, investigation actually goes through series of processes. Whatever you tell the police will take it. In the process of investigation, the police will visit the scene of crime. Whatever you said you found that person, the police will go there and make their own inquiries. If there are people around, police will make inquiries from them. Police will conduct our investigation. The point where you pick the person, as I said earlier, the bullets, pellets that will be removed from the person, all these things will be assessed. Where people, if you ask me, where I feel people get scared talking to the police, especially when it concerns someone with a gunshot injury, is when the person is totally not free from whatever led to that person having a gunshot injury. Because now, in investigation, if you are free, if you are not an accomplice, if you are not a party to that offense or to that crime, investigation will prove that you are not part of it. Investigation includes asking eyewitnesses. Investigation includes making inquiries, looking at the experts on ground, looking at them, assessing them forensically to get that data, the intelligence we're talking about, with which we will build our evidence. You understand? Police cannot just carry you and put you inside a crime you were never part of. If you are a good Samaritan, be a good Samaritan, and don't do it. Don't refuse to be a good Samaritan out of fear. If you see someone that has a gunshot injury and you don't want to help out because of fear that the police will turn against you and all that, that's not fair. Morally, it's not fair. Legally, it's not fair. Because even the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshot Act, your negligence, your refusal to help, still has an effect, it still has its own consequences. So all you need is bring the person to the hospital. The police will definitely ask you a question. There is no need to be afraid. Say what you know. Don't mince words. Say how you met this person. At the point where you met this person, the condition this person was in when you met this person, you say it. Give accurate information to the force so that when the police goes back investigating, when in the process of investigation, those things you said will still come up. And this time around, it may not be from you. When they hear it from eyewitnesses, from people that saw what happened, and those people, whatever they say, if whatever they say tallies with what you told the police, how then can police victimize you? So we come from the part of the world where people are afraid, naturally. Another thing is ignorance. Many of our people don't know about this compulsory treatment and care for victims of gunshot wounds. Many of our people don't know the laws, and they don't want to know. That is just the truth. So when you know all these things, they say you can act better when you know better. If you know all these things and you come and give the police the accurate information, on what ground can they victimize you? The police cannot prosecute you or harass you, depending on the words you want to use for in the context. The police cannot victimize or harass you when you've said what you know, and what you know have been proven. So I will tell the populace to, eschew this fear, in dealing with the police. There are channels. If you have an issue, you have relatives, they will definitely come and see you. You understand? You tell them, we have the police public relations department in every state command. That's the state police command headquarters. In every zonal command, just the way mine is here. And we have it at the national level. And this day of social media, you can actually reach out to anybody, anywhere. Just do a video, just send the text, just send the petition, and we'll give it prompt attention. So nobody victimizes you. Most times people don't want to act at all. They just assume, and they live in the world of their assumption. If the police is victimizing you because you did good, write to the police, write a petition, complain to the police public relations officer of that particular jurisdiction, complain to the commissioner of police. There are so many channels where you can call the control room. All these numbers are all over the internet. My phone number is on the internet. All you need is to Google it. So please, I think it's fear that does the better part of the harm to our people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, DSP. As I said, one of the reasons we do these webinar series in Compos Mentis is because we want people to be educated and enlightened. Our people, perish for lack of knowledge, as you just said. It's very important that people know their rights, because only by knowing your rights that you can ask for them and it can be enforced properly. And I'm very grateful to you for giving us more insights to the ways we can reach out to the police. I think my generation and Gen Z, they are a very social media generation. And the police, I know they are all the channels. They're on Twitter, they're on Instagram. You can actually find most of their numbers and reach out to them by some of these social media handles. So the most important thing is that people should be less fearful, as you've said. And when there's an issue, if police is really victimizing you, as you say, you need to try and reach out to the right agencies. And of course, if possible, reach out to your lawyer to assist you if you do not know what your rights are. Thank you very much again, DSP, for that. Now, I want to also come back.
Please, I want to say something.
Yes, sir.
In reaction to one of the issues the doctor raised earlier, because at some point I had to step out and go back, the issue of not getting support from the police. Please, I would want to give her a friendly advice on that. There are channels to handle issues. I don't know whom she spoke to at that point in time. If actually it's a local area, there's a divisional police headquarters, you can walk into the office of the divisional police officer, that's popularly called the DPO, as our people do. Meet the DPO. Tell the DPO. There is no police DPO that you walk into his office and tell him your challenges, especially when it regards the health of the populace, and he will not give attention to it. Whenever you need the support of the police, especially when it concerns dispatching armed men to help you quell a situation or to assist you in a very dicey situation, possibly chaotic, or a situation like that involved gunshot victims. If you are in a local place, you can meet the divisional police officer. If you are in the state capital, you can meet the deputy commissioner of police in charge of operations. They call them DC Ops. You understand? Where you can meet DC Ops, you can meet DCA, deputy commissioner of police in charge of administration and finance. If you can't meet the commissioner of police himself, these are people you can talk to. And these are the people who are the echelon. When it comes to the state command, they are the echelon. They are the management team. They make things happen in the state police command. While the DPO makes it happen at the divisional command, we still have area commanders. So all you need is to ask who is in charge. If you can't remember the titles and the names I'm calling, you can ask who is in charge. Please, I want to see the person in charge. Definitely you'll be granted audience. When you are granted audience, Possibly go with a letter to make it more official and authentic. Give it to the DPO. Sir, please, this is a request. He will go through it. If it is the one that is above his power, he will advise you accordingly. If it's to write to the headquarters, the command headquarters, you write. You follow it up. Everything has processes. You know, in civil and public service, it's very bureaucratic, but just patiently follow it. When you follow it, you definitely arrive at an expected end. The CP can't say he can't help you when he knows that it is the primary duty of the police to secure lives and property. The Deputy Commissioner of Police Operations won't say he can't help you. Neither can the DCS say, no, the DPO or the area commanders. You understand? Yeah, so please, all you need is just to go through the right channel and just arrange and streamline whatever request you are making. Possibly put it in a paper form and submit it. Make the request and then follow it up.
Thank you.
Follow those channels and it won't work outside.
Thank you very much for the friendly advice. It's actually, I've had different experiences, and I find that sometimes it's individual based. Some police officers you meet, they will help you to the very end, especially most of these times you are meeting them under emergency circumstance. This particular situation that I was talking about was an incident of a woman who had been beaten, and she had apparently lost consciousness and regained consciousness. And she called one of my doctors, and she was talking in a confused manner. And we know where her house is, and we know that beating had been going on in that house. And this was at about 2 a.m. And I needed help because there's no way I'm going to send my doctor to that house to go and bring that woman out without the husband being a confrontation. And I can tell you that I wasn't provided. Because
now, did you call the DPO? Was it a DPO you called, or you called the state controller?
It was in the night, and I called the number of the, I don't want to name the police station. There was a police station not too far, and we were told that there was nothing they could do, and they were asking me who was going to bear the cost.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Daria and DSP. I think you've both touched on critical issues. One of the issues we have in Nigeria is always funding. I think you also mentioned that even the 5% that is being recommended now is not even a third of what the AU says we should have, the African Union. So I think in Nigeria, despite what the DSP has said about the channels we can reach, we always have the issue of funding. If there's no vehicle, if there's no petrol,
fuel, what we
and
did
all
do?
that to bring people, yes, we always have that challenge. But I mean, this part of this webinar is how we can help ourselves in the midst of the challenges that we have. So I just want to appreciate both you and DSP and Dr. Daria and DSP for your comments in these areas. I think, of course, if in cases where maybe it's non-emergency, where we need to make reports, yes, we can follow through what DSP has said to make the right reports. And fortunately, this webinar series is going to be available on Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners YouTube page. So for all the names he has mentioned that people haven't been able to pick up, you will be able to pick up those names when we post it on our YouTube page. So please follow us, and you have access to this information. Of course, I want us to go to question and answers. I want to ask one last question to Queen before we go to question and answers. Now, you've been hearing the conversation, and I love the back and forth between Dr. Daria and DSP. We understand that you're leading, abled minds in the medical law unit at Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners. Can you tell me, from your own aspect as a legal practitioner in Compos Mentis, what way your team is poised to helping society to avoid some of these issues? One, we talked about the issue of the police, and we are, as a nation, we are afraid of the police. How do we help individuals with that? And then two, even from the aspect of the hospitals, how do we either educate them so that they know what their obligations are to society?
So the focus of my team's activity is it's the enlightenment and education of citizens and the hospitals also. So because the understanding is that we can have laws, they can be so beautifully crafted, but if people are not aware of the laws, if they're not aware of their rights and obligations under the law, then the law is of no benefit to anyone. So what my team, with that in focus, what we do is we engage with hospitals So we offer training programs to hospitals, going to train their workers, their healthcare providers on their rights, the rights they have towards patients, and the obligations of even those patients to the hospital. Because there are times it's not just about the hospitals having, or the medical officers or nurses having some sort of responsibilities towards the patients. The patients also have their own obligations towards the hospital. And aside from the trainings and all of that, we also liaise with non-for-profit organizations whereby we take campaigns to the grassroots. The purpose of that campaign is to enlighten the public, because we can talk and say everything that we want to say. If people are not aware of what they should do, if people don't know where they should go to, who they should meet, what platform they can vent their problems to, and all of that, then all what we are doing will basically be of no use. So we try to engage with the people at the grassroots through our interface with non-for-profit organizations, and we are also available to actually listen to some of these cases and then see how we can be of assistance and of help using our legal knowledge. So that's in a nutshell what we.
Thank you so much, Queen, and thank you to all our panelists. Quickly, I would like to give one or two people the chance to ask questions, because this is an informative webinar. I see Chukwunonso Ndukwe has raised his hand. I will ask you to unmute yourself, and please very quickly ask your question, no preamble. Chukwunonso Ndukwe, please ask your question.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chukwunonso Ndukwe, founding level student of Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So my question is addressed to the DSP. He mentioned that prior to 2017, that the hospitals are required to get a police report before they treat a victim of gunshot, or a victim of gunshot. I don't know if I heard clearly, but if that's what he actually said, please, I would like to know whether a particular law backed this provision, or whether there was any particular law that backed this provision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chukwunonso. Obinna, let's hear a question from Obinna, and then we can take the questions together.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My question is regarding the process, and also if there's any way to ensure the masses, both literate and illiterate, of their medical rights, and sort of a way to ensure that people can lay complaints to the police, because it's not as seamless as it was explained. There's a bit of bureaucracy and a bit of harassment once you're about to lay a complaint to the police. So is there any way, from the medical perspective and from the police as well, that the masses can be aware of these rights? Because not everyone has access to the internet. Probably if there's a process and it's online, not everyone can have that access. Illiterates who can't read, some certain classes of persons who are unable to reach information, unlike those who have access to the internet and the enlightened few. How can information based on rights and a process to lay complaints, how can it be spread around to every class of person?
Thank you, Obinna. So we have two questions. I'm going to take those two questions. I think DSP got cut off a bit. So Queen, if you'd like to answer that question from a legal perspective, if before 2017, what formed the basis of the police asking for police reports?
No, he asked whether there was a law in 2017. That's what he asked.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. What was the basis for the police asking for police report before 2017? That's what he asked.
Okay, so there wasn't actually any law asking that if somebody has been shot and so you're taking the person to the hospital, so this person will need to show some form of police clearance before the person is being treated. And it was just a matter of what we could call a rule of practice or convention. So it wasn't actually a law. It's just something that perhaps like the police officer, there's something they are developed to be sure that they don't let criminals in quotes, because, and I don't find it a problem because the law actually presumes everybody innocent. So there's this presumption of innocence for every suspect. So how can you now say, oh, because this person is has been shot, so there's a tendency that this person has to be linked to a particular crime? It's actually a faulty premise to me. But to just answer that question, there was no law. So it's something that became a matter of convention or rule of practice.
But there was now a law in 2017, yeah?
Yes, we don't have a problem with that. He just wanted to know what it was before 2017. And so the second question, I want to ask Dr. Daria specifically, because she has a lot of experience in the medical field. What is being done, what can be done in terms of reaching to people at the grassroots level to educate them on their rights? Because maybe some of them don't have access to my webinar or to my YouTube channel to see this, sort of information being disseminated. So what can we do, or what is being done?
Well, from a public health perspective, because this is a public health issue, from a public health perspective, I would advise that we have a multifaceted approach to the whole thing. We need to start utilizing community social organizations, gatekeepers of communities, churches, mosques, get media houses to buy into the idea of giving some of their broadcast time as part of a corporate social responsibility. So these are all ways. And then working together, all the different stakeholders, we need one group of people that can bring the different umbrella bodies of the Medical Association, Nigerian Women, Medical Women Association of Nigeria, NMA, all these things, the lawyers, the broadcast houses, and co. Put them together as stakeholders and say, okay, let's decide this is the way forward. It's different ways you need to look at it. And I guess to have some community action plan including the police. I mean, of course, they are very relevant in this situation.
Thank you, Dr. Daria. And just to add to that, I remember when polio was a problem a few years ago, and there was a lot of effort put in telling people in churches and even on the radio to come and vaccinate their children. So I don't think it's that difficult to disseminate this information. If we want to, we know the mechanisms to go through to do that. So I thank you very much for that response. So two more people, George and Duke. I will allow you to ask your question. George first. George Aham.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, George.
Hi. Okay, my name is George Aham, Client Relations Manager, Western Hospital, Warri. And my question is with regards to what Dr. Paulina Daria talked about earlier regarding treating an emergency or a patient that required urgent attention. And after the attention, 1 million naira had already been expanded and there was no way to recover that money. And when the DSP was speaking, I think, if I had correctly, he made mention of a particular fund that was made available for responding for people that have emergency needs. Now, my question is this: how many hospitals are aware of this, number one, and how exactly can these private institutions have access to this money that have been made available? Because I don't think Dr. Daria is aware. If she's aware, I don't think she will have issues. If she's aware and the money is readily available and accessible, I don't think she will have issues with treating these persons that require this attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. And Chinaza wants to take your question as well.
Thank you so much, moderator. Well, my question is to the DCP. I want to know because he has spoken authoritatively that from 2017, we no longer have cases of police people asking for asking the hospitals to get a clearance before a treatment of gunshot wounds could be commenced. Now, from an empirical perspective, I do not think the DCP statistics are correct, because as close as last year, 2022, I had up to 2 separate reports of that incident of police harassing medical practitioners. Of course, ordinarily, the medical practitioners are still with this fear that this is the norm. When some of them who are active or activists take further steps to treat, we've had cases of police. I've had to interface with the policemen in Anambra. I would refrain from mentioning the division. So I'd had to interface with them, and then I asked them, are you aware of the existence of this law that says you don't need this? Why are you harassing these medical practitioners? Why are you making them scared? Why are you putting them on the edge in doing their job? And they legit told me to my face that there is no such law existing. They told me pronto that no such law exists, that the practice is that they have the directive from the top in combating crime as gallant men of the force, as they put it, that they have the directive and they want to make sure that all these kidnap syndicates are rounded off, and all these armed robbery syndicates are rounded off. So they must make sure that they find out who exactly it is that is admitted before any step can be taken in saving the person. And I was trying to put it across to them that from the standpoint of the medical practitioners, they are interested whether if the person is to face trial, if the person is to face jail sentence, even to face the hangman, he has to be alive to undergo trial. He has to be alive to face his sentence. So why don't you allow these people do this to work freely, and then when the person is fit, hand over to you? So I want to know from the
DSP will answer the question. Thank you. I know you're very passionate.
Let me put the question across to him properly. I want to know what mechanism the police has put in place to checkmate police officers who are still harassing medical practitioners, who are activists, and who have taken a step further in compliance with the law to treat patients, emergency care cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll first of all take the first question that George asked, and I think he asked it to Dr. Daria, but I'll also give Queen a chance to answer, because I think, I'll give Queen a chance to answer, but let Dr. Daria answer. The gentleman asked about the fund available for hospitals to recoup some of their expenses when there's situations that you've spent, ₦1 million, whatever the amount is, and the person cannot pay or the person has absconded. If you are aware of how hospitals can plug into this fund.
Sorry about that. Like I told you, I have been caught in so many situations where my money is still out there as a business person. But as a medical person, I have still continued to provide emergency care. But part of the ignorance that perhaps we also face is that we don't know how to plug into these funds. So there is a huge difference in our country between laws and whatever has been designed to make things work and the execution of these things. It's the same issue I had with the police. There are so many police officers who are so willing to help you. And then if you're unfortunate and you meet the wrong person, so we need a situation where it should not be person dependent. It should not be individual dependent. But I don't know personally of how to plug into this fund. I wish I knew, and perhaps that's part of the ignorance we are talking about. So if we are less ignorant about it, then perhaps we can tap into it more and we'll be less hesitant to treat individuals.
Thank you so much, Doc. And so that's why I wanted to ask Queen, which I thought Queen would be very good to tell us a bit about the implementation. You spoke lovely about, the law as it is, the 5% from the initial act, and even the new law, which is supposed to help. How far have we gone in implementation? How can Dr. Daria, how can Mr. George plug into this? And they want to get their money back. So please tell us, how can we get that back?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that I'm not working with the Ministry of Health, but that's on a lighter note. So actually, yes, there is the law that a certain percentage of a particular fund is to be devoted for treatment of emergency cases in Nigeria. The law also stipulates that a particular committee or should be constituted for that purpose, both under the Health Act and the Health Insurance Authority Act. But like we've always known in Nigeria, the issue when it comes to law is implementation. So we could actually have the laws, but the issue falls back to implementation. And that's why I would really think, I'm actually surprised that the medical practitioners are actually saying they aren't aware, because I think it's actually something that the Nigerian Medical Association should push for, because it's actually, okay, there's the law now, you have it, you have a right to this thing. So the next thing for you to do is to push for its implementation. It's not the lawyers that will push for the implementation of the law. It is the people for whom this thing is meant for that should push for it. So I think now that this information is out there, now that they know that they are entitled to some percentage of some monies that they can get to recoup their expenses for treatment in emergency cases, they should go all out for it, drive the implementation process. That's what I was saying.
Thank you so much, Queen. So I think the response from the Queen is that the law is there. The challenge you currently have is that it's not being implemented. And we believe that since the law is made for the medical practitioners, for their sector, their governing body, if you know the board members, I know it's time to reach out to them to say, we were told by Compos Mentis Legal Practitioners that there's this law and there's part of money that should be sitting somewhere so that we can access it. How about we start putting pressure on our governments, federal, state, local, to access these funds so that medical practitioners can actually provide the care they need to the citizens? And I think that's a very interesting takeaway from this webinar. Thank you so much, Queen. Now, the last question before I get every panelist to make their final remarks goes to our DSP. And it's a very dicey question, a very passionate question from Mr. Wonsu, who said that he has it on good authority. In fact, they briefed him that medical practitioners were still being harassed by police officers saying that they are not aware of any 2017 act which stops them from asking for police reports. So please, what are the mechanisms in place? One, to educate, and then two, when police officers are found wanting, what does the police force do so that medical practitioners and citizens can feel comfortable in implementing the law?
I think I've answered this question while buttressing my facts earlier on, but I'll still have to reiterate. The control room numbers are there, that's one. Social media has made the world a small global village where I can easily, communicate and contact whosoever you want, provided the person is on the platform to interface with you. Then, if you Google, you can see the police, Nigerian police force handles, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that. We have it. You can write directly to them. The people that handle these different social media handles are police public relations department personnel. And there is a department under the PPRD, that's the Police Public Relations Department, that handles complaint against the police. It's called the Public Complaint Bureau, PCB. Now, keep that aside. If you want to, take it physical, you want to, see to it that justice is being done, you can go to the commands, ask for audience, either with the CP, the DCs, or the provost of that command. If it's a division, every divisional police headquarters has its provost. If it's a state command headquarters, it has a provost, a command provost. If it's an area command, it has a provost. So you walk straight to the provost. If you don't want to go to the PRO, that's the PPRO, Police Public Relations Officer. If you don't want to go and report to him or her, you can go to the police provost marshal. You can go to the provost marshal and lay this complaint. The provost marshal is just like, how will I put it? He or she is the one that wields the big cane in the police. That's the disciplinarian of the force. You understand? You can go straight to the police provost, either in the state command headquarters or the divisional headquarters, or even the area commands. Even the zonal commands like ours, every police formation has a provost that makes sure that this is a regimented organization. And regiment means that everything, the rules of engagement is outlined. Whatever you are doing has a legal backing. We work within the ambits of the law. You can't just wake up and say what you want because you don't know. You don't exhibit your ignorance trying to demarcate and tarnish the image of the force. You don't do that. So when someone like that says that they are doing gallant whatever, I don't want to delve into that because I will decimate the person with words. But that apart, just walk to the police, ask them for their office, that you can ask their office, come and see their boss. You come and see their boss, or you ask of the command provost or the provost of is the command or the divisional headquarters. Make your complaints. Tell them, because definitely they will tell you their sections. That's another question, very vital answer. Question you need to ask. What department are you? If it's a tactical team, you get the name of the tactical team. Whenever you come in, they may not tell you their names, like their individual names, but inquire the section they are coming from. When they tell you their section, then make your inquiry. The names, the phone numbers, the contacts are all over Google. You can just Google it. If it's Edo State, Imo State, Google it, police public relations. You can get the contact. Call the police public relations officer that you're coming to see him. Maybe at the entrance, you could ask them of the provost office, or you can even tell him, see, you want to see the provost. Every police public relations officer will avail you opportunity. He will give you audience to hear from you, especially when his men are messing up. Because we know what we go through trying to market this force. Then a couple of people who don't know and don't want to know, they will come and demarket it, making work hard for us. I don't look like someone that likes stress if you look at me pretty well. So how can someone come and start, doing something that funny? So please, in a situation where you have such a challenge, George, I hope I got the name right, please ask the team, the department, their section. If it's a CID, you ask him, what's your section? Please, may I know your section? They tell you D1, D2, D13, blah, blah, or they tell you a tactical team, you ask, get the name correctly. Then you can get their command. That's the state command they are under. You ask. They will give you those information. Use that information and come to the sectional head if you can't go to the PRO or the provost. You lay your complaint. The laws are everywhere. These laws were not enacted and put under the cupboard. No, these laws are everywhere. You can Google them. So someone should not come and say anything. I know that's why earlier I mentioned fear. The doctor is afraid, yes. But in a situation like this, that that you have a legal backing, you cannot come and tell any public relations officer or any provost or any commissioner of police or an assistant inspector general of police or the deputy inspector general of police or the inspector general of police himself that see the challenges you're facing from his men, and he knows the legal implication of the action his men are taking as a result of ignorance. He will not keep quiet because he knows the damage that particular thing will do to the force. If you check all over social media, there have been series of dismissals of policemen of late. The current Inspector General of Police, IGP Usman Akali Baba, he takes nothing as nonsense. He doesn't take it. He's the core disciplinarian, and this job is founded on discipline. The rules of engagement are there. All you need is to be professional about it. Read those rules of engagement. Every action you're supposed to take at every given time, in every given situation, is applying. Something you just wake up and start doing anything you want. That's where the regimented organization comes in. That's where the regiment comes in. So please, when next you have such a challenge, reach out. You can just Google it, the state command, get the control room number. You can call and tell them to give you, okay, they may not possibly give you, depending on when anyone can call for anyone's contact. But please just go to the office. Or look at the social media handle, the Nigerian Police Force. The handles are all over there. Twitter, just write to them. You will get a prompt response.
Thank you so much, DSP. I think that's a very good point to come to our conclusion on this topic. We've been really well enlightened by our panelists, and I just want to give our panelists 30 seconds each, their final word. What would they like to tell the public on this issue? First of all, Dr. Daria, what's your final word on this topic?
Sorry, I think some forgetfulness from old age that is happening. Okay, sorry. My final word is that every individual should take responsibility for their knowledge and their well-being, and that includes both the professionals and the population. Having said that, we do have an immense need for someone who can pick up this responsibility and say, let's bring stakeholders together and let's see how we can get things to move on from here, be it in the creation of awareness of the laws or of whatever else it takes, as well as form an advocacy group for the support systems that we need. So we can actually reach out to the state governments and say, look, We need a blood bank, a centralized blood bank. We need a centralized emergency care service or ambulance service. So we really need to do this. And if we come together, lawyers, police people, medical people and all, and form one unit that can go forward and say, this is what we want from you, it might make an impact.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daria. And then final word again from DSP Bruno. Let's have your final word on this issue, on this topic.
The God that created life in His purity. He that helps secure life is human. So whoever that sees someone that is dying and refuses to help, that person has removed from himself or herself what makes him or herself human. So whatever we all can do to make life better, to make living better for ourselves, we should do it. Then in the aspect of the police, whenever you have an issue, talk to the appropriate authorities. Go through the right channels. You can use social media if you don't have anything to resort to. You can use social media. Social media will avail you phone numbers of the highs and the mighties in the job. And please, to my men, stay professional. It's a very noble profession. I don't like it when people rubbish this. I love this job. I don't like it when people rubbish this profession. Everything we do should build confidence in the eyes of the populace. We are here to preserve and protect lives and properties. And if you cannot do it, then you have failed humanity. I think those are my last words.
Thank you so much, DSC Bruno, for that beautiful piece of poetry at the end. And finally, Queen, let us have your final word on this topic.
Okay, so I just want to say to everyone, like the general public, that now that this information is out there in the domain, they should be willing to exercise their rights. They should be willing to take benefit of the law that's been enacted. And I also want to, as a way of suggestion to the medical practitioners, that they are also partners in progress if we are to make any headway in the implementation of the compulsory care and treatment of gunshot victims. And by that, I mean that they should be able to strive to ensure that the federal government complies with the law as regards the issue of funding. So they should be able to impress upon the government to ensure that the 5% that is due to them is given to them, because I feel that will help to drastically reduce most of the issues that we are having. And then I also want to say that when you're in doubt of anything, please reach out to a lawyer.
Thank you so much, Queen. And with that, we have come to the end of our first webinar of 2023. I want to thank our panelists immensely for taking out the time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. I have learned a lot. I am sure our participants have learned a lot, and we are very, very grateful to you. Thank you again to our participants for staying with us for about an hour and a half or so. And we look forward to hosting you again at our next webinar series. I will now yield the floor to my Chief Operating Officer, Engineer Noli Akwede, FNSC, FNICE, PMP, FMP, ACIR, MIOD.
And all the P's. Thank you so much, my managing partner. So very quickly, just a brief about us. We started this law firm in 1985. Our founder, Daffy Akwede, who is no longer with us, started the firm about 37 years ago, 38 now. And we provide sterling legal services. We have offices in Lagos, Warri, and Abuja. We're very proud of the fact that we're the first Nigerian law firm to be ISO 9001 2015 certified. In fact, we're up for recertification next month. And we can be contacted at our website, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and by telephone. In fact, this webinar, the recording will be on YouTube in the next couple of days. So please avail yourself of any information you want from this webinar. I spoke about the Daffy Akwede SA competition at the beginning. So it's a competition for law students in Nigerian universities. And submission deadline was on the 11th of April. We had over 50 submissions. The team is cracking ahead, assessing the submissions. We have internal assessment, and then we have external assessment too. We have judges, lecturers, people in academia, and senior lawyers also doing assessment externally. The winners will be announced on or before or around the 16th of May, which is the birth date of our founder, because this competition is in his honor. So please go to our website, social media handles to get all the latest information, because the next time we'll be talking to you, it will be at a webinar to announce the winners of the Daffy Akpedeye essay competition. Other information, our managing partner, our delectable managing partner, Daffy Akpedeye, she's on the board of what we call the Restorative Justice for Africa Initiative, and they'll be having a webinar tomorrow, so please join them. You can go to www.regafrica.org to get the link, and to be a very interesting discussion around what we call restorative justice in the Nigerian criminal justice system. So it's been an awesome time having you with us. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you again tomorrow for the Regia webinar, and in May for the announcements of the people that are winning the 500K on the Daffy Akpedeye essay competition. Thank you very much. It's been awesome being with you. Do have a lovely day and a lovely weekend ahead. Thank you and goodbye. God bless you all.